Today on the Star Wars Universe podcast, Paul Hoppe and I are here to discuss The Mandalorian, Episode 4, Season 3. All that right after this ad we have no control over. Welcome back. I'm Ashley Coffin, joined by Paul Hoppe as we commandeer this podcast.
The vessel is now under our control.
So we're just going to wing it. We're just going to X-wing it and have a really good time.
Excellent.
So, Paul, it's been a minute since you have been back talking Star Wars, especially with me. But how are things?
Things are pretty good overall. I have not been doing a lot of podcasting. I did that one Bad Batch episode kind of as an emergency fill-in. And then today I am the emergency fill-in for this episode of Mandalorian, which I've like kind of been watching week to week. Not really because I wanted to, but just Lee decided she wanted to watch it. It was like the first show she was really excited to watch in a while.
Lee is my hero in this story.
Yeah. The series has disappointed her, which is an easy thing to accomplish. So I'm familiar with doing that myself. And, overall, it has not been my favorite season of The Mandalorian. And I kind of wasn't sure whether I really wanted to do this episode, but I was like, all right, season 2, I didn't really like the first 3 episodes that much, but then Carl Weathers directed the 4th one, and it was a banger, and like the rest of the season was some of my favorite Star Wars stuff. And this episode didn't quite live up to that, but it did. I got into it. You know, there were definitely some highlights that I enjoyed, and it was short. You know,
it was short. It was compared to last week. I was concerned because I was watching it. I'm like, one point that I noticed, I was like, when Grogu didn't eat the rock crab.
Oh, yes.
I was like, oh, Paul's in.
That was a relief. I was like, don't eat the rock crab.
But then we took a turn to dragons, and suddenly it was House of the Dragon, and
Right.
Whatever. It was, at least they brought the babies back. So let's kind of get into it, because I'm going to need you to tell me all the stuff that I might have missed during this. But I don't know. I really enjoyed Mando training camp. Like even Grogu's getting in on the training.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite part of the episode. Was there were a couple things, but the kind of just all of them out on the beach sparring, right? How they're all kind of going about it different ways, but there's this kind of camaraderie. It reminded me actually a little bit of like being at Taekwondo, and particularly before class, right? And people are just kind of like trying out different things and training together, and there's some system of rank, but there's this supportiveness. I think even when it's harsh, it's like, no, go on, kid, go play with these darts that you've never learned how to fire before. So yeah, it gave me kind of somewhat positive flashbacks, to that kind of thing, and I did enjoy that part.
I thought that whole scene was funny because he's like, yeah, go ahead, fight Grogu. And I was sure that kid was going to be like fisticuffs. I was like, this kid is just going to punt Grogu across this thing. I just didn't know. I didn't know what was. And then they were like, oh, no, there's weapons. And I was like, oh, okay, paintballs. Because that's not what was going on with everybody else.
Right. No one else was playing paintball. I was like, this is a good choice. This is a good choice.
I was like, are you going to have him force choke this kid right in front of everybody? Because I'm totally here for it. But
right. This to me felt like a good choice from the writing department of like, all right, we're not going to be too severe with it, right? But we're gonna demonstrate Grogu's capacity, but also kind of the Mandalorian way and all that stuff. And yeah, it is. I mean, any kind of combat training, there is always the question like, well, how do you do it without hurting each other really, really badly?
Yeah.
Right.
Not everybody has. What's that room that the X-Men use?
Right. No, not everybody has the danger room.
The danger room.
Right? Yeah.
Danger.
Exactly.
But I mean, speaking of danger, I also don't think that is a really safe place for the Mandalorians to live while they have obstructed vision, because this is the second time we've seen something come up and just be like, I'm here now, I'm going to eat your people and take this kid away. And then like to think like, oh, that kid's still going to be alive after maybe like a fortnight or however long it took them to get there and climb up.
Yeah, I feel like this place is an interesting choice for the Mandalorians to call home, right?
Not very safe.
And I'm going to give them a little bit of leeway and benefit of the doubt in that they have been this oppressed people who have been driven from their home repeatedly, right? Had their ancestral home just destroyed by the Empire. And then I think they got driven out of, Navarra, in the first season, right? When there's the kind of remnants of the Empire and they were there. Yeah. And so, I think there's, when a group of humans goes to a place and then, kills a bunch of the wildlife, like, I don't look on it so well. But when it's an oppressed group of humans, there's like,
a little better.
Yeah, it's like they're just trying to get by. They're trying to survive. I also think maybe picking this really harsh environment with a bunch of natural predators makes some sense for them, right? Like, this is the way.
Keeps you on your toes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, no, you have to pay attention or you'll get eaten by a dragon.
Well, again, with the obstructed view, I'm like, how did that dragon sneak up on all of you? There's
right.
50 of you out there and nobody saw.
Right. Like, did it come over the cliff at them, or it came and like the kid was just distracted because he was all dejected because he was the one who just lost, right, to Grogu?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then they made the comment that it happens all the time. Like,
right. I know, that's like, oh man, it happens all the time. And that's not good.
It's not good.
Pick another place, like, geez. So yeah, that, seems very questionable, but it also feels kind of in line with who they are. So it's not the sort of thing where like, oh, nobody would live there. It's like, well, they would live there.
Yeah.
As long as they can survive, I guess.
And I do love like this journey that we're going on with Bo-Katan and how she's meshing with these people and she's the one standing up like, oh, I know exactly, like, I'm going to find them after everybody's jetpacks went out, which made me laugh because I was like, did you guys have to walk back? How did you make it back before she did? Okay, logic aside, I'm just not even going to go there.
Yeah. Yeah, like, how did they kind of know what they knew but then not know what they didn't know? Like, that didn't all feel like it meshed together. But
like, if she picked them up on the way back after their jetpacks went out, that would have made sense, but they were already there waiting for her.
yeah, exactly.
Then again, that dragon did go pretty far.
It did. It was pretty far, I guess. Like, we don't know how far exactly. Far enough that you want to take a ship there. But I do think, like, episode 2, I felt was very ostentatiously trying to show, how tough Bo-Katan is. Mm-hmm. And I didn't love all of the way it did it. This episode, I felt, did it in a much more kind of just organic, natural feeling way. I really enjoyed how she just is a leader, right? She's naturally, like, she's not trying to be a leader. It's just who she is. And that just comes to the forefront. And she's just like, well, let's just do this because this is what makes sense. This is what I can do. I can take some of you, blah, blah, blah. Okay. They go. And then she's like, so, how do you eat with these things on?
It's like always scurry off in the dark corners.
And then they all scurry. And I liked that. I think Paz Vizsla was like, you're the leader of the war party. You have the honor of, eating by the fire.
I loved it so much. And I like how it's like, it is affecting her in a way. Like, I don't know if she thought she would do it. And I'm not, you get approached by, Jehovah's Witnesses or whatever. No offense to those. And you're like, I don't want any part of this. But then when you lose everything, you're going to give me a bed to sleep in. You're going to be like really cool with me. This is my old way. Like, I don't know. I like what's happening with her. And I love that her hair stays perfect and slick underneath that helmet, no matter how long she's had it on.
Right. Well, yeah, getting the hair approval from Ashley is high marks. So,
and then Grogu is having his
Yeah, it's like PTSD kind of flashbacks, right?
Flashback. And listen, I love any showing of Order 66 because I feel like we always just get a different angle of what's happening in the storyline.
Right.
And the more and more we get, that means we get more lightsabers. And I was pleased. But tell me, because I have no idea.
Yeah.
Who did you think was that somebody significant getting him out of there? Or?
Yeah. So I'm personally not the biggest fan of Order 66. I'm on record as being like, just, I've said what I need to say about it. I will say that given the fact that this episode was basically about hunting a giant animal and Order 66, I'm really surprised how much I enjoyed it.
Me too.
So that Jedi was Kelleran Beck, who I think is in a like a mini series or like a web series or something.
Okay.
And the actor
the actor of the film.
Yes. The actor portraying Kelleran is Ahmed Best, who played Jar Jar in the prequel movies.
That is why you made that joke. That went right over my head earlier.
Right, yeah. So he had a really rough go of it after the first movie. And, it's one of those situations where I think, the Phantom Menace in particular had a lot of really uncomfortable racial stereotypes, right?
Right.
And so criticizing that, I think, is legitimate, and basically being like, hey, George, what are you doing? But meanwhile, this actor, Ahmed Best, who's just a guy just trying to get roles in Hollywood, like...
You're not saying no to Star Wars. I don't care what you
Right, exactly. And he got all of this, like, very racist vitriol directed at him.
That's
to the
terrible.
point where he, like, left acting for a minute and like contemplated suicide. And I mean, it's just absolutely atrocious the way people acted towards him, when it's like, you can complain about the character, and I mean, I have, but like, that doesn't mean you target hate at the actor, right? I mean, that's obviously completely unacceptable in any form.
That happens so much. Like the Joffrey Baratheons, the Game of Thrones people, like people getting death threats, like calm down. Even the guy from Winter Soldier who played what's his face? The Captain America, like Wish.com Captain America. John Walker.
Oh, yeah, him. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to threaten Kurt Russell's son.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't, it's
sad.
It's awful the way that people, like, if you want to dislike some piece of fiction, have at it, right? And if you want to complain about it, and particularly, like, not harass the writers, but be like, hey, I think this was a bad choice. And sometimes, like, I think you're doing harm with your choice, right?
Right.
Fine. That's legit. But like sending death threats, like there's really no context where like making racist and sexist and homophobic and transphobic remarks are ever legitimate, right? And so, it's just, I think it's really nice that he got to come and play a hero who's, just like straight up, like, yeah, he's a good guy.
Double lightsaber for days. I loved that scene so much.
he gets to also be the only competent Jedi in the episode, that's like my biggest criticism of Order 66 is just like, how do all these Jedi go out like such punks, and it's like,
stormtroopers, we know that they can't shoot. So what
I know.
happened?
Well, they're clone troopers.
Who
supposedly were better than stormtroopers, but like there's like 4 Jedi and 4 clone troopers. And like somehow 2 of the Jedi get cut down or something, and now Kelleran can take on like 20 of them, And it's like I'm here for him taking on 20 of them. That works for me, The like 4-on-4, I'm like, you're gonna have to be a little more convincing. But yeah, him picking up the second lightsaber I thought was awesome. It does always make me ask the question though, like, if you're really good with 2 lightsabers, and you think you're going to be better off in this fight with 2, why don't you just always have 2? Why don't most Jedi have 2? Why is that kind of a rare thing? It's a little, I don't know.
They're such sticklers for their rules.
Yeah, exactly.
I would just always have a double one, like, what's his face?
Oh, yeah, you'd have the kind of...
I would have a double one that breaks and
right, that you can split it apart.
Yeah, that's the best.
Yeah, that seems like a good choice. Just don't go for the cross, the hilt, the cross guard.
No, that doesn't seem like it would ever, I would lose all my fingers the first time I tried. All of them.
For sure.
Oh, and then when they sent those TIE fighters after him, I was like, oh, he's going to be fine.
Yeah, he'll be fine. I mean, because we know Grogu makes it out of that scene at the very least. Yeah. So, presumably he eventually meets an unpleasant end in the next 20 years. Before A New Hope, but we don't know. Like,
we don't know. I don't think they're going to do that because now they can bring him back in a movie and be like, surprise.
Yeah, like he could show up in Andor season 2, or I don't know. But like it does bring up the question, like, well, how did Grogu end up alone in that, like, you know, in his like bassinet floating egg thing later on?
Yeah.
You know, like what happened to Kelleran? But yeah, I thought he was really good as you know, in that role. You know, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot to the role, right, in terms of like acting and dialogue and stuff, but you know, it was a very physical role. And like, yeah, I mean, I'm here for the lightsabers, you know,
Always.
if it takes Order 66, it takes Order 66. But you know, 2 lightsabers at the same time, you know, let's do it.
Oh, I loved it. Oh, they just got to keep Grogu in that place and keep, you know.
Right, just keep traumatizing him so we can get all the flashbacks out.
But then that ended so beautifully when she
did.
gave him his armor, and I'm like, look at you, you little warrior.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the armorer and Grogu, and they're kind of, you know, she's like, come Grogu, you know, and like,
Yes, let
like,
me tell you.
yeah, like the extent to which she, you know, she treats him as a person, right? And which not everybody does to the same extent. And although I feel like so far this season, people really have, which is nice, you know, it's cool to see. And yeah, I like the idea of like, are we going to gradually see like eventually this like fully armored Grogu, like a helmet with like
with
ear holes, or
Oh
will
my
the
God,
helmet have
I
ears?
need it. It's gonna have ears.
It's gonna
have to
yeah.
be protected.
Right.
You can't just have them floating out there.
But are they going to be like movable ears? Like there'll be ears on the helmet that can like move with his ears?
No, I don't know.
You know, like some
I don't know how
chainmail.
they're gonna make it, but chainmail would work.
Yeah.
I don't know. I want
Chainmail
like, full-
ears.
What does Tony Stark use? The
Oh, the nanotechnology?
nanotech. Yeah,
Right.
They could do it.
I think there's something like that somewhere in Star Wars.
I'm sure. But yeah, he got his first little cute thing, and then then we have the whole dragon chase, which I was like, did that dragon really need to get eaten by another thing in the water? It didn't, because if it just went down and then we saw it get up later, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I
think was that in like Book of Boba Fett where they like kept doing that? Or I know they did that in the Phantom Menace, right? Like this is this Star Wars thing
Every
where
time you fall in water, something eats you.
yeah, or like some predator gets eaten by some other predator, you know, and it's like
The bigger and the bigger. And
okay.
Thanks for the help, guy.
Yeah, and we were like, oh great, now all those little baby dragons are gonna starve.
I thought the same thing, but
and then they
did
took
what I
them
was
in.
not expecting.
Yeah, and I'm like really curious, like where are they going with that?
Why? Yeah,
You
like
know?
what are you guys gonna do with that?
Like, are you gonna train them as Mandalorians? Or like,
She said, "I have foundlings for you."
right? Are you gonna ride them? Like domesticate
good
them?
idea.
I don't know.
Maybe
you know?
use them, grow them, and then have them
Yeah.
as security, because you
Right.
can't see what's going left, right, up, or
Exactly.
below you with those
You
helmets.
barely see what's in front of you with those things. So
I really liked the conversation at the end with Bo-Katan and the
armor.
What were you calling it? Armor.
Yeah.
Because she's like, no, girl, I saw one of them things. And she's like, Way of the Mandalore sees lots of things. She's like, no, I saw one. And she's like, this is the way. And I'm like, that's still not, like, I'm like, you are not letting her know that you believe her. And I need you to, like, you need to believe her. Believe me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because, like, there was another earlier, I think right after Din had saved Vizsla Jr. or whatever the kid's name is. and they're like, this is the way. This is the way.
This is
and
the way.
Lee's like, that's just what they say when they don't know what else to say.
I love Lee so much. Yeah. Well, this is the way. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, okay, sure. I guess
I will
this is the way.
contemplate that now
Yeah.
for a while.
Right?
But
I think Bo-Katan's journey is actually very interesting so far, And like, I mean, I know after one of the episodes, maybe it was the last one, you said that there was a conversation about Mandalorian sex. Sex. But I guess now that we see that one of them has a biological kid, presumably, then I don't know the logistics of that. But
you just gotta leave your helmet on.
right, exactly. But here, like I'm like, at the beginning I was like, oh, why is Din going back to this? Like, I thought he was gonna, kind of move what I would consider forward, a little more progressive, like
he loves
away
it.
with these like really kind of ridiculous cultural things. But like, I think it's interesting that instead of that, like they have Bo-Katan being like, well, I'll do this for now at least, right? Like,
yes.
Like we don't really know how much she buys into it or not. Like probably not a lot, but her home just got blown up, and I think she expects that if she were to go back there and try and rebuild it, like maybe they would just keep coming back, right? So I do think it's and it's been an interesting, first part of an arc for her, and I'm very curious to see kind of where that's going.
And she's getting a lot of honors from these people who called her like a traitor or whatever for how long, like, disowned her as one of their own. And now she's coming back being like, no, I'm that bitch.
Right. Exactly. And I mean, she's like very Mandalorian, right? She's just wasn't one of the, I think, children of the Watch, right? Like she wasn't part of that group. And because that's just like, they didn't all do things that way anymore, right? That's not how she grew up. But she still grew up in this very hardcore Mandalorian, this is how we do things.
She would technically be their princess, right? Or no?
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, she's from the clan that was ruling. I don't know the whole history and everything.
Because remember, Boba kept teasing her by calling her princess.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, her sister was the queen, I guess, or whatever. And then Satine, yeah. Okay. She was running things, and I'm still waiting for Sabine to show up. She's a character from an animated series, so
yeah.
So that's why,
Is Sabine Obi-Wan's girlfriend or Satine?
No, Satine. So Bo-Katan's sister
so funny.
was Obi-Wan's girlfriend, not girlfriend.
Okay. Well, we've brought that up before that Ewan McGregor, like 6 Degrees of Movies, like Ewan McGregor and Nicole Kidman did Moulin Rouge, and Ewan McGregor, she was Satine, and that was his girlfriend. So I just thought it was so funny. That's the only reason why I remember her name.
Right.
Now you're like, Sabine. I'm like, who the hell's that? Is that no, Jade, whatever, is Luke Skywalker's girlfriend, not girlfriend, right?
Oh, what, Mara Jade or something?
Mara Jade?
Yeah, that's from the Legends canon that has been decanonized by Disney. And
that would be
I'm
dumb.
sure some people want the character to return, some people don't, and maybe some people want a revamped version of the character, perhaps.
Cool. Okay.
But yeah, no, Sabine is she's one of the main characters of the show Rebels, and she's a Mandalorian, but she's also an outcast Mandalorian. And
doesn't Darth Maul cut her head off or something?
That does not happen. Oh, that's Satine.
Oh, God damn it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure he kills Satine, and that's one of the reasons Obi-Wan, has a long lasting grudge with Darth Maul.
Oh yeah. You killed my daddy. You killed my girlfriend.
Right.
Not daddy, but Jedi daddy. My Jedi daddy.
Yeah. My mentor.
But yeah, I actually appreciate the short and sweet episodes like we just got. I could go for more, but that was enough. That was cute.
Right. Exactly. I feel like some of the episodes don't need to be longer, right? Like the Robert Rodriguez episode of season 2.
Oh, so good.
It was so short, but it was so good. It was just all action. I don't need every episode to be all action all the time, but when an episode is going to be really heavy action, I think keeping it short is usually good, right? When you make a feature film that's an action film, making it 80 to 90 minutes, I think is often a very good choice. If it's a little light on plot, right? And it's
oh yeah.
They could have tried to work in some more character moments here. And if they had good ones, it could have worked. But if you just kind of try to throw more stuff in just to extend the runtime because you're in that kind of network TV format of it's got to be 42 minutes, right? It's no, this is better. The last week's episode, which I didn't love, but I think a lot of people appreciated what it was doing. And I did feel this is an episode that requires 50 minutes to an hour, right? it didn't feel to me like it didn't earn its runtime. I just didn't love all of it. But like this one, meanwhile, felt like, yeah, it's supposed to be short and tight and sweet, kind of.
Yeah. I appreciate that with the action stuff. Because we just watched Iron Man for a rewatch on the MCU cast, and it was like, I love the whole beginning of that movie, and then the end is just so much action, and I was like, ugh, this is where it fails.
Yeah, I feel the same in a lot of action movies where, and I do feel that some in Iron Man, which I really loved when it came out, and I still enjoy now, but the end does feel like, you know, there's just this third act, like, it just goes and goes and goes, and it's like, sometimes maybe just like, boom, it's done. Okay, cool, you know? And if you have some really complex action sequence that's really creative and everything, sure, maybe go with that, right? But like, sometimes it's just too much, and it's like you're just trying to extend the runtime, and it just feels super unnecessary to me.
I honestly think some of my favorite episodes of The Mandalorian, I mean, it's the shorter ones.
Yeah.
Because I like action.
Right. Yeah, and they had, and like the very last episode of season 2 is not that short. It's not super long, but it's like a lot happens in that episode. There's a lot of action. And a lot happens, and there's drama, like, and there's it's like a horror movie for a minute, right?
For a second.
The Dark Troopers are like pumping it,
so
you know,
good.
How many life forms? None.
And that score.
Yeah, and the score, right? The dubstep Dark Troopers, it's just
so
the whole thing. So yeah, it's just this episode didn't need to be 45 minutes, right? 30 minutes was plenty to tell the story that this episode wanted to tell, which was basically 2 very short stories. Right? It was 2 short stories, each of which had a lot of action, and they kind of got to go back and forth between them a little bit. And like, it just worked. So I enjoyed it. You know, they kept it sweet, short and sweet. Maybe we'll keep it short and sweet as well.
I'm just so happy that you came here to do this with me.
Yeah, I
Thank
mean,
you so much.
It really was only because I wanted to like hang out with you for like half an hour or whatever and just chat about the Star Wars. So.
Maybe we'll get you for the finale.
Maybe. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how the series progresses. Hopefully it'll have a bit of a like season 2 arc where like from my personal experience of like gradually getting better as the season went on, you know, we're like all last 5 episodes of last season I really enjoyed. So here, you know, maybe it'll just keep getting a little bit more up my alley.
Well, so since you're not going to be here, where would you like to see this season going? Like, what would be something that you would like to see that would make you happy?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's my biggest, I don't know, like, there's a word that isn't coming to mind because I almost choked to death on a lentil today. But I'm at a loss for words. But I have a little bit of kind of hesitance about like really fully being like, yes, I'm definitely watching this season, because like there's some places that I'm pretty sure it's gonna go over time that like I'm not that interested in seeing Moff Gideon come back as much as I love Giancarlo Esposito, and I think the character was fantastic, but I'm just like, I don't need more of that kidnapping Grogu to clone the Emperor. Like I don't need to see the somehow, you know, that explains somehow Palpatine returned, right? I don't need that. But what I would love to see more of is like the actual like Grogu training and becoming, I'd like to see him hanging out with the other Mandalorians, you know?
Yeah,
like,
I can't wait till he starts talking. Like, let's get there.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And then he gets to get a helmet, right? You don't get a helmet till you speak, and you don't speak until you know.
Are they trying to say, like, we know that Palpatine was able to clone himself because of Grogu? Or is that, like, what we know? Or no?
I think that's the heavy implication that...
And that was how they did all the clones?
Yeah, and whether it's... how much of it is due to Grogu or how much of it is just Grogu and them trying to kidnap Grogu repeatedly is part of this whole program. We don't really know, right? But like, it's clear that that's all related. And like, I thought that was kind of interesting for a while, and I'm like, okay, that's nice. Like, can we like go take Mandalore back or something? That seems more interesting to me, right?
Mandalore seems pretty ripe for the taking. Like, there's nobody there.
Right,
some
except
creatures.
for those like weird troll-looking people, and I don't know, and the mythosaur. But like,
But he
yeah,
seems cool.
right. So yeah, right. Yeah, he's chill. But yeah, I'm much more curious to see like where does Bo-Katan and Din Djarin and Grogu and the Armorer and the Vizslas and like the Mandalorians, like what are they doing, right? Like they're just kind of hanging out here, and maybe some of them go off and do bounty hunter missions or whatever. I don't know, but like yeah, where are they going from here? I think that's an interesting story. I kind of came into season 3 expecting that was probably the main premise of the season.
Okay,
and so like. I love the Coruscant stuff in Andor. The Coruscant stuff in Mandalorian just to me felt like not of that level, so it's not quite gonna get me as interested in that. I'm like, just leave that to Andor and let's do the Mandalorian stuff in the Mandalorian.
I did not need an Andor episode in the middle of my Mandalorian. Like,
right.
This is not Boba Fett. Get out of here with that.
Yeah, right. It was almost like, to me, it felt like they were paying back the episode that they borrowed from the Book of Boba Fett. They're like, well, we borrowed it, we stole an episode there, so we're going to give one back here to whatever this is. Which, to me, by the way, just like did not feel on like a level of like Andor in terms of writing and acting and cinematography and everything. I will say that having seen that episode gave a little moment's recognition in this episode where they were speeding by like that rock.
I saw the rock.
Right? You saw the rock. That's the rock. That's the rock.
It was all for that. I was like,
right.
I felt giddy about it. So cool.
It's like a little shallow, but like, I don't know. It was fun.
Fine. We're having fun, and that's all that matters.
Okay. There was one more thing that I wanted to bring up that I just learned like yesterday, which is that Din Djarin isn't really played by Pedro Pascal most of the time.
I don't want to hear that. What do you mean?
So he's actually the Pedro's not in the suit, except when he takes the helmet off, he just like records dialogue for the most part. The guy in the suit is Brendan Wayne, who is John Wayne's grandson.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So he's like doing this like, that like kind of gunslinger
That's why he walks
Western.
like that. Oh
exactly.
My God.
He's like kind of doing like an imitation a little bit of his granddad.
That's amazing. I had no idea. I'm going to tell everybody I know now.
Yeah. And then there's also a stuntman. I think he also is an actor, but Lateef Crowder, who does the like, the hardcore stunts, which I think definitely also deserve their credit because,
absolutely.
At times they're like particularly awesome. Sometimes they're just very good, and sometimes like that thing where he kicked the spear back up over to hit what's his name in the head in the episode that we were discussing from last season. Like some of that is just awesome, and so I just think this is like in the vein of Darth Vader, right? Where it's like the character is this composite where it takes a whole lot of people to actually bring them to life, the same way Grogu does as well, right? I mean, it's not one person just playing Grogu. And to me, knowing this doesn't take away, it maybe takes away from the illusion, but it doesn't take away from, it almost adds to like how impressive it is that for like any complaints I have about any of the writing at any time, I never doubt that Din Djarin is like this one guy who's doing what Din Djarin would do,
Yeah.
Like, and so I feel like they've really built this character using all of these people to really effectively portray this character the same way they do with Grogu, right? With, there's a voice actor and there's the puppeteers. And actually, I think the puppeteer is a voice actor for it.
It's impressive to me how expressive they can make that puppet because you totally get all of his emotions and he's so gosh darn cute. But besides that, like you feel when he was like when I'm watching, I'm like, he's really upset about what's happening. I think or is this just how the puppet? No, he's actually upset.
Yeah. No, they really do communicate a ton with Grogu through the puppet, just through the physical mannerisms, right? And they do the same with Din without Pedro Pascal even talking. Sometimes it's just the tilt of the head. How he tilts the head like conveys some very different things, right? Emotions or thoughts or whatever. And, so I just think it's worthwhile because I think we gave Pedro Pascal like a lot of credit for that when we were talking about season 2,
no
and like he's phenomenal in the part of the role that he plays, but I think the other guys are also that way as well.
I still don't understand why there's not an Oscar for stunt people or a Golden Globe for all across the board. Emmys, everything, because there's stunt people in everything, and they really deserve to be up there with everybody else. Like, you have makeup and hair, which is important to me. I honestly think stunts is even more important than that to the films that we're watching. So they need to figure that out.
I mean, especially with like in any kind of film, it can be extremely important, but with the proliferation of action films to kind of the top of, you know, the box office and, you know, winning awards as well.
Yep.
You know, it's like stunts are such a massive part of all that it's like it going unrecognized. I mean, I'm not really into the whole awards show thing, but like that's for me, that's more like another strike on it. Like, did they take editing? I think they took editing out of the main.
It's I think it's cinematography and film editing. Editing's in there.
But like I think one of these award shows like demoted it in terms of how it's presented in whatever their things are, and you know, it's like, I don't know. I don't want to go on a long thing about award shows, but it's like, yeah, if you're gonna do all these awards, like stunt people should get them.
Yes, 100%.
Because there's a lot of, you know, and Mandalorian does very well with getting excellent stunt people.
Yeah, John Wayne's son. Who knew?
Yeah.
Pew pew pew.
I think he maybe wasn't credited in the first 2 seasons, but now he and Lateef Crowder both are getting credits.
Good.
On the
Good. I wonder if that was.
I'm not sure about that, but I definitely saw a couple credits. I'm like, oh, okay, they're there.
They're there now.
I didn't pause it and play it back and whatever.
You got to go back to episode 1, do some detective work.
Right. Exactly.
Well, you got anything else, or what do you think?
I think that's about what I had to say. You know, I enjoyed it. It had a couple of themes that I don't usually enjoy, but like it worked for me anyway. So, you know, that's to its credit.
Where can everyone find you, Paul? Tell people what you're doing since you're not podcasting.
Right. I mean, I'm ZenMadman on Twitter and Twitch and YouTube, and like ZenMadman Poker and ZenMadman Chess on YouTube. But like, I haven't been making a lot of stuff. I've been, you know, training in I've been like up on the mountain, you know. It's kind of more of like a Jedi retreat
on the way
type
to Zion.
Deal. Yeah, so I would have kept the lightsaber and not the, you know, the armor, but you know,
agreed.
I'm glad Grogu got to make a choice.
Yeah, I would have kept the lightsaber, but not ever been a Jedi.
Right. I'd be like, I'm keeping this. I'm going to learn everything you have to teach, and then I'm going to go do my own thing. I'll get me a red one, a green one.
I'm going to have a red and a green, and you can just call me Christmas. Yeah, no, I don't understand. That is going to ponder my thoughts, why they don't carry 2.
Right?
Come on, just carry 2.
Why not 2?
Just carry 2.
Just carry 2.
Just make 2.
I mean, also think about all those times someone drops their lightsaber, or you get your right hand cut off and your lightsaber falls down a weather vane. Take out the other one with your left hand. Boom, you still got a lightsaber. We've solved so many problems.
Solved all of the problems, from Mace Windu all the way to Luke Skywalker.
Exactly.
All right, so yeah, Star Wars and stuff. Join us next week.